Hollywood's always had flops. That's just part of the business. But every now and then, a movie doesn't just bomb. It drops like a damn anvil and takes an entire studio down with it. And look, not all of these were trash. One of them is a full-blown classic, one that people still rewatch every year like clockwork. But the financials were so out of whack, it pushed the studio straight into the grave. So here it is, 10 movies that didn't just flop, they wiped out the studios that made them. By the time Bangkok Dangerous came out, Nicolas Cage was already deep into his what the hell is he doing era. He dyed his hair brown, tried to look stoic, and remade a Thai action flick no one in the US had even heard of. It opened at number 1, sure, but it had the lowest grossing number 1 opening in 5 years. The budget was $45 million. It didn't even make that back. Final tally was just $42 million. A 67% drop in the second weekend. Audiences bailed fast, critics called it a career low, and it was all downhill from there. But here's where it gets ugly. The studio behind it, Virtual Studios, collapsed shortly after. They'd only been around for a few years, but during that time, they'd helped put out Snyder's 300, Blood Diamond, even the assassination of Jesse James, not a bad track record. Then Bangkok Dangerous came along, tanked hard, and wiped them off the map. The company folded, and the guy running it, Benjamin Weisbrun, left to pursue other ventures. Cage, for his part, later admitted some of his movies from that era were what he called work-for-hire mistakes. He didn't name Bangkok Dangerous specifically, but he didn't need to. Warner Bros. Wanted to cash in on the Space Jam magic a second time. What they got instead was a Frankenstein of a movie that killed the entire division. Looney Tunes Back in Action was supposed to be the start of a new era, another hybrid of live action and animation, directed by Joe Dante, the guy behind Gremlins. But the studio hated Dante's version. They chopped it up, reshot scenes, changed the ending, and completely neutered the movie. Dante later said it was a movie made by committee. Brendan Fraser said the whole experience was soul-crushing, and Warner Bros. Just wanted it off their books because the movie earned just $68 million at the box office, off a budget of $80 million. The very next year, Warner Bros. Feature animation was shut down. That was the end of it. The Looney Tunes didn't get another theatrical movie for almost 20 years, and when they finally did, it was Space Jam: A New Legacy, which we won't even get into. Raise the Titanic was supposed to be ITC Entertainment's big swing, a Cold War thriller with one massive hook, bring the Titanic back from the bottom of the ocean. They spent $40 million in 1980 dollars to make it happen. That's over $180 million today. Producer Lou Grade later said it would have been cheaper to lower the Atlantic, and he was right. They built a 55-foot Titanic replica. It cost $350,000. Then it turned out it didn't fit in the water tank they had, so they built a bigger tank. That alone cost $6 million. That new tank could hold over 10 million gallons of water, and they had to build it right next to the old one just to get the shot. The movie made $7 million back. That's it. 7. Critics destroyed it. Audiences ignored it. And the end result was one of the biggest money losers of its time. ITC had to sell off its distribution arm just to stay afloat. It limped along until 1998, but Raise the Titanic ended its run as a serious film production company. And to make it even worse, Clive Cussler, who wrote the original novel, hated the movie so much he refused to sell the rights to any more of his books for 20 years. When he finally caved, they made Sahara with McConaughey in 2005. Cussler hated that too. Titan was supposed to be Fox's answer to Disney. It had Don Bluth and Gary Goldman co-directing, a massive $75 million budget, and the full weight of Fox Animation behind it. And still, it was dead on arrival. The movie barely scraped together $36 million at the box office and was pulled from theaters in under 3 weeks. By then, Fox had already started cutting its losses. A year earlier, they'd laid off 300 out of 380 employees. Then came the movie. Then came the funeral. Fox shut the entire animation division down 1 week after Titan hit theaters. Entire departments were laid off by voicemail. In-development projects like Barlow's Inferno and The Little Beauty King were erased from existence. It was one of the most public animation implosions Hollywood had ever seen. And it hurt even more because Fox Animation had started strong with Anastasia, which actually gave Disney a run for its money. But by the time Titan showed up, this big post-apocalyptic sci-fi adventure with the voices of Matt Damon and Drew Barrymore, traditional animation was already dying, and audiences just weren't showing up. The final loss estimated to be around $100 million. Fox didn't even bother pretending it had a future after that. The Fall of the Roman Empire was one of the most expensive movies of the 60s. They spent $20 million, which would be over $200 million today, on a giant sword and sandal epic that tried to outdo Cleopatra in every way. They built a full-scale Roman Forum, 92,000 square meters, the biggest outdoor set ever constructed. And then they watched it tank. It made less than $5 million in the US, and that was it for Samuel Bronston Productions. 3 months after release, the studio was bankrupt. The empire fell, literally. Anthony Mann shot for 143 days. They used second-unit directors to film action scenes simultaneously. Sophia Loren got $1 million paycheck, only the second actress ever to hit that number after Elizabeth Taylor. None of it helped. Critics couldn't even agree on whether it was good. Some called it massive and incoherent. Others said it had potential. Scorsese, years later, described it as a poignant beauty of a lost art, a relic from the dying days of the Hollywood epic. Stephen Boyd blamed the flop for ruining his career. The Roman epic genre collapsed with it. Hollywood didn't go near ancient history again until Ridley Scott brought it back with Gladiator in 2000. But by then, Sam Bronston's studio had been dead for decades. Square Pictures created an entire studio just to make The Spirits Within. 4 years of production, $137 million spent, a team of 200 people working to bring a video game to life on the big screen. The result was a financial catastrophe. It pulled in $85 million worldwide. That's not nothing, but it wasn't even close to what they needed. The studio was shut down 6 months after release. And they didn't just want to make a movie, they wanted to change the entire film industry. The main character, Aki Ross, was hyped as the first ever virtual actress. They even got her on the cover of Maxim, trying to turn her into a synthetic celebrity. She made the Hot 100 list. And then, she vanished. Apart from one small contribution to the Animatrix, Square Pictures never made another movie. They were done. It's one of the only video game adaptations that didn't completely humiliate its source material, but behind the scenes, it destroyed any future the studio had. This was the one that finally sunk Carolco Pictures, a studio that had Terminator 2, Total Recall, and Rambo under its belt, just died, choking on a pirate movie. The film was a bloated mess. Budget hit $98 million, and it barely scraped together $10 million worldwide. Crew members were quitting mid-shoot. Rennie Harlan fired the chief camera operator. More than 24 people walked. And this was supposed to be his honeymoon movie with Gina Davis. Harlan insisted on insane stunts, real ships, 3 cameras rolling at all times. He even dropped $1 million of his own money into script rewrites. Carolco couldn't afford it, but they let it happen anyway. Cutthroat Island missed the top 10 on opening weekend. Didn't just flop, nosedived. Guinness even gave it the record for biggest box office bomb at the time. After that, Hollywood didn't touch pirates again until Disney finally cracked the formula almost a decade later. But for Carolco, this was the end. After Pulp Fiction, Travolta could do anything, so he chose to pour his post-comeback energy into a passion project based on Ron Hubbard's Battlefield Earth. He originally wanted Quentin Tarantino to direct this thing. Seriously. Tarantino took one look at the script and said, no thanks. So Travolta handed the reins to Roger Christian. This is the guy who shot second unit on Phantom Menace. And somehow, the finished film came out even worse than you'd expect from that resume. Travolta was all in. He put $5 million of his own money into it, claimed it was better than Star Wars, and even compared it to Schindler's List. Barry Pepper said most of the film's budget probably just went to paying Travolta. Forrest Whitaker later admitted he regretted being in it. J.D. Shapiro, the film's original screenwriter, personally accepted the Razzie for Worst Movie of the Decade and wrote an article basically apologizing to the entire planet. He said, "The only time I saw the movie was at the premiere, which was one too many times," then added that out of all the bad movies, his was the suckiest. But here's the part that really makes this one legendary. The studio behind it, Franchise Pictures, lied about how much the movie cost. They told their German co-financiers, Entertainment AG, that the budget was $44 million. In reality, it was closer to $73 million. Some court documents even put it at $75 million. And when Entertainment figured that out, they sued. The court agreed. Franchise Pictures had grossly inflated the budget to cover overhead, bonuses, personal expenses, you name it. A Los Angeles jury awarded Entertainment $121 million in damages. That lawsuit bankrupted the studio. So Battlefield Earth didn't just bomb at the box office. It also dragged its own studio into court, lost a 9-figure lawsuit, and wiped them off the map. Heaven's Gate was supposed to be Michael Cimino's big follow-up after The Deer Hunter. He had just won Best Picture, Best Director, and pretty much every ounce of clout a filmmaker could ask for. So United Artists gave him the keys and got completely steamrolled. Cimino went completely off the rails. He shot over 200 hours of footage. He blew through budget after budget until the cost ballooned to $44 million, which in 1980 was catastrophic. And after all that, the movie limped out of theaters with a $3.5 million box office return. The fallout was so bad that United Artists didn't just lose money, they ceased to exist. Parent company Transamerica pulled out of the movie business entirely. United Artists was sold off to MGM, and just like that, one of the last great havens for auteur-driven cinema was gone. This wasn't just an expensive misstep. This was the cautionary tale. Every time a studio exec clutches their pearls at the idea of giving a director too much control, they're thinking about Heaven's Gate. Frank Capra's most beloved movie helped bankrupt its own studio. Liberty Films poured everything into this. Capra made it personal. Jimmy Stewart was just back from the war suffering from PTSD and channeled every ounce of that into George Bailey. Some of those emotional scenes, he was genuinely falling apart. But when the film came out, audiences didn't show up. Critics were lukewarm. RKO buried it. The movie lost over $500,000, and Liberty Films folded the very next year. Paramount swooped in and bought up the remains. Capra never saw it become a classic. He died before it took on that reputation. It wasn't until the copyright lapsed and TV stations started airing it for free that the movie found its audience. That's when it became the Christmas movie. Back in 1946, it was just another flop that killed a dream.